Dr. Len Craig also wrestles with this critically important question about who God is in terms of the teaching of Jesus. And of course he admits that there's no Trinity in the Old Testament, period. He doesn't even mention hints of it, thankfully, because many scholars recognize there's not a word about the Trinity in the Old Testament. The standard HarperCollins Dictionary of the Bible, in the little article on the Trinity, says, attempts to trace the origins of the Trinity still earlier to the Old Testament literature cannot be supported by historical critical scholarship. Of course that's right. There's no Trinity, no triune God at all, even suggested in the Old Testament. However, the key here is that Jesus affirms that absence of the Trinity in the Old Testament by reciting the heart and center of his inherited faith. That's to say, the Shema, the Hear, O Israel, which we find reported in Mark 12, 28, 29. Jesus, therefore, affirms in the strongest possible terms the need to accept the Old Testament Hebrew view of God. He hasn't gone a centimeter beyond that creed. And nor, of course, does Paul, because Paul said in Romans 3:29 that God is the God of the Jews. Just as Jesus in John 4:22 had said that salvation is from the Jews. And we, Jesus speaking, said, we Jews know whom we worship. We're worshipping the one God of Israel. It is really then fantastic for churches to gather under the umbrella of a triune God that was not known to Jesus or to Paul. Paul himself said in 1 Corinthians 8:6, there's one God, namely the Father. In 1 Timothy 2:5, there's one God, clearly the Father, and one mediator between that one God and man, and that's the man Messiah Jesus. That's the real New Testament creed, perfectly clear. God is one. He's the Father of Jesus. Jesus is the unique, not just merely a man, an ordinary man, far from it, the unique spokesman of that one God, coming into existence, being fathered, being generated, as Luke 1:35 says, in the womb of his mother Mary. A real human being, but having this extraordinary quality of having no human father, Joseph not being his father, except in a legal sense. So that's what makes Jesus then not a mere man, far from it, not an ordinary man, but a man of whom it is said that he has a supernatural beginning. He has God himself as his father, God working a creative miracle, a biological miracle in Mary.